The quiet ache that no one talks about. There's a kind of silence that lives inside a man's body as he ages. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself. It simply settles quietly in the space between sensation and absence. You might not talk about it, most men don't, but somewhere deep inside you've noticed the shift, a certain softness, not in emotion, but in function. The mornings aren't the same, the urgency isn't there. And when it is, it fades too quickly, like a fire that never quite catches. It's not just about erections, not really. It's about feeling alive in your skin, in your blood, in your very center. It's about that sense of power. That quiet current of masculinity you used to carry without effort. The thing that made you walk differently, breathe differently, live differently. Now, it's like the lights are still on, but the current running through the wire has dimmed barely enough to flicker. No one tells you how much of your identity is tied to that current, to that private, internal flame, and when it dims, it's not just the body that changes, it's the way you see yourself, the way you move through the world, the way you look in the mirror and sometimes look away. You may try to ignore it, to tell yourself it's just age, just normal, but a part of you misses the man you used to be, not for vanity, but for vitality. And that's okay. This isn't a weakness, this isn't failure. This is the truth of many men, good men who still carry desire, presence, and depth, but feel disconnected from the power that once flowed freely. You are not alone in this quiet ache, and there is a path not back to who you were but forward, into a deeper kind of connection. Not performance, but presence. What happens to a man when he feels less than? There comes a time in a man's life when he starts avoiding the mirror. Not because of wrinkles, not because time's passing, but because of the man staring back, the one whose eyes no longer hold the same certainty, the same charge, the same quiet pride. You don't talk about it. Most men don't, but you feel it, that strange, dull ache in your chest when you realize you're not the man you used to be, not in the ways that mattered most to you, not in your energy, not in your presence. Not in your power down there. The world keeps turning, you still go to work. You still smile when someone asks how you're doing, but beneath all that, there's a quiet withdrawal from intimacy, from touch. From the inner fire that once made you feel alive in your skin. No one told you how much your identity was tied to your sexual vitality, until it started fading, and now the silence inside you feels louder than ever. But let me say this plainly. You are not broken. You are not less than. You are a man whose body is calling for a different kind of attention, not from others, but from you. And maybe, just maybe, it's not about getting back what was lost. It's about meeting the man in the mirror again, this time without shame. He's still there, waiting for you to look him in the eyes again, to see not what's missing, but what remains and what wants to return, if you're willing to offer it the care, the patience, and the dignity that no one else ever taught you to give yourself. Chapter 3. Aloe Vera and Baking Soda, not just for the body, but the soul. Voiceover script approx. 400 words. You've likely seen it mentioned in passing. Aloe Vera, baking soda. Two humble things that have lived quietly on your bathroom shelf or kitchen counter for years. Never given much attention, never expected to carry much meaning. And yet, for a man who has felt the sting of fading sensation, or the quiet embarrassment of a body that no longer responds like it once did, these two ingredients whisper something deeper, not a miracle, not a gimmick, but a reminder. When aloe touches the skin, it does something primal. It cools, yes, but more than that. It soothes, like a steady hand on the shoulder after a long night. It reminds the tissue, the nerves, the memory itself, that healing is still allowed, and baking soda, so often overlooked, carries a quiet power of its own, alkaline, purifying. It doesn't shout or burn, it clears, it softens, it balances. Together, they become a kind of medicine, not just for the body, but for the story you've carried about that part of your body, about your worth, your manhood, your quiet shame. You're not broken. You're not too late. You're not done. This blend isn't just applied, it's offered, like placing a cool cloth on an old scar, not to erase it, but to let it breathe. You might not believe in things like ritual or restoration, But your body remembers, and when your hands steady, weathered, still capable apply this mixture, day after day, what you're saying is simple. I still matter, down there, in here, still, and maybe. That's all healing ever needed, a moment of respect, a gesture of quiet care, not because someone told you to, but because you finally chose to listen to yourself. The physiology of circulation, hormones, and connection down there by now, you've probably asked yourself. But how does it actually work? Not just the aloe, not just the baking soda, but the entire act of coming back into contact with that part of you that feels forgotten. It's not just about skin, it's about flow. Blood flow is life. Down there, it's everything. Without healthy circulation, the body forgets how to respond. Tissue stiffens, nerves quiet. The message from brain to body starts to stutter. And yet, your body even now is waiting for one thing: attention. Not pressure, not performance, just slow, steady attention. Aloe vera, when massaged gently into the skin, helps open the pathways. It hydrates, nourishes, cools inflammation that may be blocking the signal. It speaks to the capillaries and says, "You're still needed." Baking soda brings its own gift, a gentle balancing of pH, a softening of skin that's been through years of friction, time, maybe even quiet neglect. And what science now confirms, and older men often sense, is that hormone health is intimately tied to how we treat ourselves. Cortisol, testosterone, nitric oxide, they don't just respond to pills. They respond to rhythm, ritual, respect. You see, your body is a listener. And when you offer it something ancient and calming like this blend, you're not fixing it. You're inviting it to trust you again. This isn't about erections alone. This is about reestablishing connection between you and your body, between blood and breath, between man and meaning. And no, you don't need to believe in any of this. But your biology already does. Like a river that once got blocked by stone, the waters don't disappear. They wait, and the moment you begin clearing the path, the current remembers the way. Rebuilding trust with your own body, there's a kind of silence that forms over time. Not the peaceful kind, but the aching kind. It lives between you and your body, a distance formed not by one event, but by 1,000 quiet disappointments. You stop expecting pleasure. You stop trusting sensation. And slowly, without even realizing it, you stop touching yourself not out of discipline, but out of grief. That's where many men find themselves, not in pain, but in numbness, not in dysfunction, but in disconnection. And so, this small act, rubbing a blend of aloe and baking soda, becomes something far greater than it seems. It is a gesture, a return, a hand reaching across the divide you didn't even know you built. Not for stimulation, not for performance, but to say, "I forgive you." This isn't a task, it's a devotion, because there's something holy about caring for the part of you that once carried so much shame, so many unspoken expectations, and still waited patiently for your kindness. When you take time in private, with no audience and no pressure, to gently massage life back into that area, you're not chasing youth, you're reclaiming presence. You begin to feel again. The skin responds differently. The breath changes. There's less guarding, more softness. The body begins to trust you because you've finally stopped punishing it. Not because it failed, but because it aged, as all things do. And when you can meet that truth without flinching, when your own hands become a source of healing, rather than critique, you've stepped into a kind of manhood that's deeper than performance. You've become your own caretaker, not from fear, but from love, like a man tending to a forgotten garden, not because he expects flowers tomorrow, but because he knows the soil still holds life, and that's enough to begin again. A quiet invitation back to aliveness. There comes a point in a man's life where healing is no longer about getting back to who he was, but becoming who he's meant to be now. Not the young man chasing pleasure, not the husband trying to prove himself, not the patient looking for answers in prescriptions, Just a man, present in his body, rooted, calm, awake. That's the real gift of this journey. Not stronger erections, though those may return. Not firmer skin or more sensation, though those may follow. The real gift is aliveness. Down there, in here, you begin to move differently. Not because your hormones changed overnight, but because your relationship with yourself softened. This quiet ritual, aloe and baking soda, warm hands, slow breath becomes a doorway. A portal back into the parts of you that were never broken. Just waiting, waiting to be seen, touched with care. Given permission to matter again, and this is where most men miss the mark. They think healing is about doing more, trying harder, forcing the body back into youth, but real healing is quieter than that. It happens in the pause, in the moment you finally stop running, and simply sit with yourself. No timeline, no pressure, just presence, like a tree that no longer stretches for the sky, but deepens its roots. Instead, you begin to grow inward. You begin to feel not just arousal, but appreciation, not just stimulation, but safety, and from that safety, something ancient awakens, a current, a confidence, a quiet knowing. You're not less of a man now. You're more, because you've finally stopped proving and started being. So if you do nothing else, let your next touch be one of kindness. Let your next breath be one of trust. You're still here, still alive, still worthy, and there is nothing more powerful than a man who has come home to himself. So here you are, not at the end, but at the beginning of something quieter, deeper, and more true. You didn't come here looking for magic. You came because something inside you still believes that your body matters, that touch matters, that you still matter, and maybe this simple act, aloe and baking soda, touched with care, isn't a cure. Maybe it's something better, a way back to yourself, back to trust, back to sensation, back to the quiet power that never left you, just waited, patiently, to be welcomed home. So go gently. This is not a race. No one is watching. There is no performance here, only a man and his breath, and a moment of stillness that says, I am worthy of my own care. And if you forget tomorrow, come back again the next day. And the next. This isn't a remedy, it's a return, and your body is ready.